Hi, everyone, and happy First Contact Day. Thanks, Jaws. Happy First Contact Day. If you're thinking, First Contact Day, what, what is that? Um, if you're a Star Trek fan, you might know what First Contact Day is. According to the, I guess, Star Trek history, not Star Trek history, but Star Trek universe history, I guess the idea is that on April 5th, 2040, the first warp flight was taken, and I I don't know if the story is. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I really don't. So don't quote me on this, but I don't know if. Well, what I hear is that the idea is that the first warp flight was taken and the first contact was made between humans and Vulcans. Now, I don't know if the person who took the first warp flight took it from Earth to Vulcan and interacted with a Vulcan, or if the first warp flight was taken and it just so happened that on the other side of, I don't know, the solar system, or the obviously not the solar system, but the whatever, somebody else was making contact with Vulcans. I really am not sure how to check my facts, but I don't claim them to be facts. I acknowledge that I am really shaky on what exactly First Contact Day is supposed to symbolize. But apparently, in 2020, Paramount, Viacom, CBS started using the idea of First Contact Day as a day to market Star Trek series that they had coming. And so I don't know what happened in 2020, because frankly, I'm not going to say I wasn't a Trekkie yet. I've been a Trekkie for on and off for many years now, but on and off was off on First Contact Day 2020. I wasn't as into Trek as I kind of rediscovered my show, the show that kind of turned me into a Trekkie, such as I am, in November of 2020. So by the time I came back to Trek, First Contact Day had come and gone. In 2021, on April 5th, the morning of April 5th, I woke up, downloaded my favorite podcast. By then I had kind of re-embraced the kind of sort of Trekkie that I am. Well, I will call myself a Trekkie. I'm just not a diehard Trekkie who is an expert on everything Trek. The point is, here I am on the morning of April 5th listening to my favorite podcast, Daily Star Trek News, and she's reading this big schedule of First Contact Day and what's going to be streaming on StarTrek.com all day today. I'm like, man, I wish I'd known about this soon enough to consider taking the day off of work so I could watch this stuff. I have too much of a conscience to make up a story on the fly about why I can't make it into work and just take a day off just because I don't want to go into work. If I'm taking a day off of work, there's a reason I'm taking a day off of work. And, it's First Contact Day, and I just now found out, literally 2 hours before the streaming starts and I want to just be able to hang out at home and watch it all. That's not enough of a reason to call in to work at the last minute. That is, however, enough of a reason to know about it ahead of time and take the day off well enough in advance that it doesn't matter, which is what I did this year. So, I'm not exactly sure what a First Contact Day celebration is going to look like today. Because as of now, as of the night before First Contact Day, as I'm recording this, I still don't know what the schedule looks like. But whatever it looks like, part of my First Contact Day celebration is going to be releasing my First Contact story on YouTube. If you're still watching the YouTube video, that I probably won't edit, but I am just yammering on and on. And no, I'm not going to sit here for the next 30 minutes yammering on and on about my First Contact story. I wrote it all up. Excuse me for a minute.
My First Contact story message HTML.
There it is.
And start.
I could transfer this to my portable computer with a braille display, like mega portable computer with a braille display, and read this out loud to you. I could do it, but I won't. Because I don't read braille fast enough to read it like a sighted person. So what I'm going to do...
Control Shift page down.
Oh, shoot, that's not the right...
Slower.
There we go. I just slowed my screen reader speech down several notches so that hopefully you can understand him. And I'm going to let him read this to you. So, in case you don't know what my First Contact story, even what a First Contact story is, it's the story of how Star Trek went from a random show that I didn't know anything about, or a show that I knew about but really didn't care about, to a show that I became a fan of. And if you want to hear it in my own words, the closest that there is to that as of now is the interview that I had on Daily Star Trek News. The link to that is in the description box below. In case you can't click on that link, just even search YouTube or search the internet in general for, what is it called? On Blindness in Star Trek, Anne's story on Daily Star Trek News. We talked about my First Contact story. We talked about what I think of the only blind character I know of on Star Trek. Well, I guess the only two blind characters I know of on Star Trek. One's blind, one's visually impaired, but Allison Pitt from Daily Star Trek News and I just had an awesome conversation. And if you haven't watched it yet and you'd like to, by all means, celebrate First Contact Day that way. But here's Jaws reading my First Contact story.
And Star Trek story / First Contact story. I know that my family, the aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins I lived with after my mother's untimely death, watched some kind of Star Trek in the early to mid-1990s, either TNG or DS9. But I didn't care what they were watching enough to ask. As a teenager who liked to do her own thing, I really didn't care what they were watching. I just knew they were in front of the TV and not paying attention to what I was doing, which I appreciated. But that all changed on a Saturday night in early 1995. That night, the sounds of that week's episode of their show drew me in from another room, and one character captured my heart. For the rest of that season, Star Trek wasn't what they watched anymore, it was what we all watched. After that season, I went away to our state school for the blind. but my love for my favorite Trek character lasted and continues to last to this day. I was 15, and it was a Saturday night in February or March. We had finished dinner, and my family's show was coming on. They went into the living room and gathered around the TV, while I went into the kitchen and started washing dishes. Within 10 or 15 minutes, a medical emergency arose on their show. Now, I had been interested in medical stories and drama-type shows for a long time, and so when someone screamed, and somebody else said something about a medical emergency, and this scenario ensued where a doctor was trying to treat this guy but not having much luck, it grabbed my attention. Theoretically, I was supposed to be washing dishes, but who was I kidding? I wasn't doing dishes. I was standing in front of the kitchen sink, listening in on the TV show playing in the living room, and my uncle figured that out. "Why don't you finish those dishes so you can come out here and watch this with us?" he suggested. How could I refuse an invitation like that? With that going on out there, I finished the dishes and then came into the living room and joined them for the rest of what turned out to be the Star Trek Voyager episode called Phage. By the end, I still didn't necessarily know much about what I had watched, but I knew there was something about this Captain Janeway that I just loved, and I came back for more of her week after week, whether I was with my family or next door at my grandpa's house. Every Saturday night at 6 p.m. from March to June found me glued to a TV, taking in Captain Janeway and her crew, and slowly coming to understand their situation, and a little bit about Starfleet. I was into Voyager on and off until about season 4, and then kind of lost interest, but over the next several years, I'd circle back around into Voyager phases from time to time. I'm not sure I was ever really that much of a die-hard Star Trek fan, but ever since that winter night in 1995, I have always been a die-hard Catherine Janeway fan. Fast forward to 2017 or 2018. I saw something on the Nickelodeon Twitter account about an animated Star Trek series coming and thought, that's gonna be interesting. I'll have to check that out when it comes on. Now, fast forward to November 2020. I had rediscovered Voyager again, and I found myself, just out of curiosity, looking for Star Trek podcasts. I found the title of one particular podcast episode that just happened to mention that Janeway was coming back in Star Trek Prodigy. Hold everything. I was like, what? I knew after listening to a portion of that episode that this Prodigy series that was rolling out sometime the following year was not just a show I was interested in anymore. It was a show I wanted to follow as closely as I could, and one I absolutely wanted to watch. And now that Prodigy is out, I do watch it. Yes, I've dabbled into other series and characters. I can certainly get into some Captain Burnham, and I'm somewhat interested to at least see what Strange New Worlds brings. But at the end of the day, one of the biggest reasons I'm still here is because my favorite character is still here, whether she's human or holographic, although I'll probably always be more interested in hot chocolate than coffee. Black, my beloved Janeway, is what my particular version of Star Trek fandom has always come back to.
And there you have it. My first contact story as I wrote it. And I'm going to wrap up this video here. Check out Aira, check out Shipped, check out my interview on Daily Star Trek News with Allison if you want to. Check out anything in the description box below. I need to go back to the right program before my computer does something I don't want it to do.
Gold wave.
There we go. And thank you for watching / listening, and you'll hear from me in the next video. Bye.